This is the Bosch AXT25TC turbine cut garden shredder, and we have used this a lot for cutting up Leylandii trimmings, some quite thick ones, and it's worked very well, but unfortunately it's developed a fault whereby it will only go backwards. And we didn't initially realise that that was the fault, because it didn't seem to be working incorrectly, but it just wouldn't pull stuff through and it wouldn't cut it. Okay, so we're going to start taking it apart to get to the electronics. I have made sure that it's unplugged, so it should be safe to take it apart. The first thing you've got to do is to take the input chute off, and then this lid thing holds that chute on. You can take that off. The control for the electronics is inside this. It's held on by these 4 screws. I always like to make sure that they're all slack or slackened before taking them all out. I don't know how much of this I've got to take apart to get to the heart of the matter. Quite a lot of friction between the screw and the plastic, so they're quite stiff. Those feel to be loose, so maybe we can take this out. Quite long screws. So you can see that the lid comes off and there's a plastic seal, which is a water seal to the buttons and the lights. Put those to one side, and these are the buttons. And that button assembly just pulls off. And there are 4 springs here that return the buttons, so I better remove those. And I need to make sure that I can put these back in the right place. So I'm going to mark those. Right, now I'm going to disconnect the plugs that hold the that connect to the circuit board. I've marked this on with a blue mark so that I know that's where it goes. There's 1. That's 2. The board appears to be loose, but these 2 transistors are connected to a heat sink which is pushed underneath, and I'm hoping that that's not actually fixed to anything. Hopefully then I can pull these connectors out, and again I'm going to mark them so that I can get them back. Once the wires get twisted, it's so easy to forget where they came from. So I'll mark the one of each of those pairs. Now, I'm not quite sure how these are held in. hoping that will just pull them out. I'm not sure if these are locking pieces or just part of the plug. Oh, they are latches. So I'll lift these two out the way. Yeah, I think these are just latches. Yes, they are. So they just pull out. And then so then I can hopefully just ease these out as well. Yes. Just ease that latch out. I can remove this plug and actually, we can now see what the problem is. It's burnt, it's blackened the underneath there, and you can see here it's all blackened. So that's what's gone wrong with it. Don't know why that's happened. Anyway, there we are. So that was quite easy to take out. There's one of the resistors has burnt out and left soot or carbon, and we don't want that here because carbon conducts electricity and it could short circuit out some of the electronics. So we'll clear that dust out from under there, because that's bad news. This is the new control unit that I've bought and I'm going to fit. You can see that the heat sink, this is the heat sink, that's to cool the transistors here. They've actually put some fins on it which will have the effect of increasing the dissipation of the heat sink. So all I should need to do now is to push these carefully back into the sockets. These obviously are the power connectors for the motor. Yes, I don't know whether you heard that click, but it latched home. And these two, before I fit those, I'm going to try and tuck this back. Yeah, there is enough movement for me to do that, thankfully. And then push those wires back into the recess. These are the connectors that detect whether the grass box is back in place, and they switch off the power if it's not. So let's just push those back into their sockets. Right, push it, line it up, press it in. As far as I can tell, it's bouncing up a bit on because of the stiffness of those power cables, but I think that's good. So now push those power cables down back into that recess under there. I need to put the springs back and then the buttons. So I've got the springs. They just sit on top of the buttons like that. And then the cover. Right, now we'll push the buttons back. They have two little tags that go over the tags there. I'm having to just hold it down, and then the seal goes on. The seal is not really separate from the cover, so I'll put it all back at once. That's pressed back satisfactorily. And I'll just put the screws in so that it doesn't all shoot apart again. Feel them biting into the plastic underneath. Let's just check. They seem to be working. Because there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the motor. We're assuming it is just a fault with the control unit. Maybe it overheated and maybe it was overloaded. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on that. There's no sign that the cables are burnt, which would indicate overloading. So far that seems okay. So let's put the inlet guard on again. Clips into these two holes at the front and then back like that, and that flap then latches, but I know for a fact that until this is screwed in, the electronics receive a signal that it's not closed, and so it won't start. The brass box has to be home. That's so you can't put your hands up inside, chop your fingers off by putting them up inside, and it certainly would chop your fingers off. I just plug it in and see if the lights come on. Yes, the light's on, so let's see if it will start. And it is turning in the correct direction. And it's stops, that's okay. And that one runs it backwards. So I'll just show you that it is actually working. Forwards, backwards. So there we are. That hardly took more than about half an hour to repair and saved me about £400 on a new machine.